I stood in the hospital parking lot, my phone screen still glowing with the confirmation of the $47,000 wire transfer I'd just authorized for her father's emergency cardiac surgery. The autumn wind bit through my jacket as I watched Emma through the glass doors of the hospital lobby. She wasn't alone. Tyler Brennan had his arm around her waist, the same man she'd sworn was just part of her past when we'd started dating 18 months ago. The same ex-boyfriend she'd claimed meant nothing anymore, but the way she leaned into him, the way her hand rested on his chest, told a different story entirely. I walked through those doors with absolute clarity. "Emma." She spun around, her face cycling through surprise, guilt, and then something worse. Calculation. Tyler's arm stayed exactly where it was. "Rowan, I didn't expect you back so soon. I thought you were handling the payment paperwork." "I was. It's done. Your father's surgery is fully paid for and scheduled for tomorrow, morning at 6. I kept my voice level, watching her carefully. "The money cleared from my account 9 minutes ago." "Oh, thank God." She moved toward me, but I stepped back, and something in my movement made her freeze. "Rowan, I can explain. Tyler needed to be here?" I asked, looking directly at the man who'd apparently never stopped being part of her life. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. At least. "His mom is on the same floor," Emma said quickly. "It's just a coincidence. He saw me upset and—" "Emma, stop." I pulled out my phone and opened our text thread from the past week. "Tuesday, you told me you were working late on the Henderson account. Wednesday, overnight at your sister's because she was sick. Thursday, client dinner that ran long. Friday, your car was in the shop, so you took an Uber home." I looked up at her. "Want to guess where Tyler's Instagram shows him checked in on those exact dates and times? Because it took me about 15 minutes to piece it together while I was sitting in that bank manager's office, transferring enough money to cover your family emergency." Her face went white. Tyler shifted, suddenly very interested in his shoes. "I love you," she whispered. "Rowan, I love you. Tyler and we have history, and when my dad got sick, I was confused and emotional, and he was just there. So you chose him." I stated it as fact, not a question. "While I was liquidating my investment account and calling in favors to get your father into surgery with Dr. Patel, the best cardiac surgeon in the state, you were with Tyler. It's not that simple. It actually is." I pulled out the small velvet box I'd been carrying for 3 weeks, the one I'd planned to use after her father recovered, when the timing felt right. I opened it so she could see the ring inside. Her grandmother's aquamarine flanked by diamonds, the stone she'd once shown me a picture of and said was the only ring she'd ever want. I watched the realization hit her, watched her eyes fill with tears. Then I closed the box and put it back in my pocket. "Your father's surgery is covered. The hospital has all the information they need. I genuinely hope he makes a full recovery." I turned to Tyler. "She's your problem now. Good luck." "Rowan, wait, please." Emma grabbed my arm. I gently removed her hand. "You made your choice. I'm making mine. Don't contact me again." I walked out of that hospital and didn't look back. The first week was mechanically simple. I blocked Emma's number after the 47th call. I blocked her on every social media platform after she'd posted a tearful story claiming I'd abandoned her during a family crisis. Her friends started messaging me, people I'd known, had dinner with, considered my friends too. I responded to exactly one of them, her best friend Jenna, with screenshots, the bank transfer confirmation, Tyler's Instagram check-ins with timestamps, Emma's texts claiming to be elsewhere, the receipt from the jeweler for the custom ring setting. I added one line. I paid $47,000 for her father's life. She repaid me by sneaking around with her ex. I'm not the villain here." Jenna never responded, but the messages from Emma's other friends stopped. My apartment felt different now, emptied of the small traces of Emma that had accumulated over 18 months. Her toothbrush, her overnight bag, the drawer I'd cleared for her clothes, the coffee mugs she preferred. I boxed it all up and had it delivered to her apartment by courier. Clean break, no ambiguity, no door left open. I threw myself into work with the kind of focus that only comes from needing to rebuild everything you thought was solid. I was a senior analyst at Meridian Capital, and I'd been coasting for months, distracted by relationship planning and engagement ring shopping. Now, with that distraction gone, I saw opportunities I'd been missing. There was a residential development project in the Keene suburbs that everyone else had passed on. They said the area was too far out, too risky. I spent 3 weeks analyzing demographics, traffic patterns, school district ratings, and commercial development permits. The data told a story nobody else was reading. This suburb was positioned to explode in the next 5 years. I worked 16-hour days compiling the research. I drove out to the site repeatedly, walked the land, talked to local business owners, attended city council meetings to understand the infrastructure plans. I built financial models that accounted for every variable I could identify, stress-tested them against different economic scenarios, and projected returns that made my hands shake when I saw the numbers. I wrote a 60-page proposal and walked it into the managing partner's office myself. "This is bold, Rowan," Daniel Carver said, flipping through my projections. "You're asking us to commit serious capital to an area most people write off as too distant. Most people are looking at where the market is. I'm looking at where it's going." I pulled up a map on his screen. 3 tech companies just leased office space 15 miles from this site. The highway expansion breaks ground in 8 months. The school district just passed a bond measure for 2 new schools in this exact area. In 3 years, this land will triple in value. In 5 years, it'll be the most sought-after residential zone in the region. He studied the data for a long moment. "If you're right about this, it's a career-making project." "I know." "And if you're wrong?" "I'm not." He approved the project. I was named lead analyst, with a team of 4 under me, and a percentage stake in the profits if we hit our targets. Emma's father survived the surgery. I learned this not from Emma, but from a mutual acquaintance who felt compelled to tell me the family was grateful but hurt by how I'd handled things. I didn't respond to that characterization. I'd handled things by paying for life-saving surgery and removing myself from a relationship with someone who'd betrayed me. If that hurt their feelings, so be it. 2 months after the hospital, I was working late when my phone rang from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Rowan." Emma's voice was hoarse, like she'd been crying. "Please don't hang up." I should have. Instead, I waited. "My dad is recovering well. He asks about you. He doesn't know what happened between us. I couldn't tell him while he was in recovery. He thinks you're just busy with work." "That's not my problem anymore, Emma. I know I don't deserve anything from you. But I need you to understand, Tyler and it was a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life. I was scared about my dad. And Tyler represented this safe, familiar thing from before everything got complicated. And I sabotaged the best thing that ever happened to me." "Yes, you did. He's gone now. Tyler." I ended it. I told him I was still in love with you, and he agreed it was wrong, and we— "Emma, I don't care." The words came out flat and final. "I don't care about Tyler, or your reasoning, or your regret. You showed me who you are when things get difficult. You chose someone else while I was emptying my savings account for your family. That tells me everything I need to know. I'll pay you back. Every cent. It might take years, but I don't want your money. Consider it a gift for your father, who never did anything wrong except raise a daughter who doesn't understand loyalty. That's not fair. You're right. It's not fair that I wasted 18 months on someone who was still hung up on her ex. It's not fair that I planned a future with someone who was lying to my face. It's not fair that I bought an engagement ring for someone who was sleeping with another man while I was arranging her father's surgery. I paused. But life isn't fair, Emma. You taught me that. I never slept with him. Rowan, I swear, we never... I don't believe you. And honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. Physical or emotional, you betrayed me. We're done. This conversation is done. Lose this number. I hung up and blocked the number she'd called from. That night, I lay awake thinking about the proposal I'd declined to entertain, the explanation I'd refused to hear. Some people would say I was being harsh, unforgiving. But I'd learned something important. Forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. I could forgive Emma for being human, for making mistakes, for panicking under pressure, and still recognize that her choices made her fundamentally incompatible with the kind of partnership I needed. The development project consumed me. I worked 70-hour weeks, coordinating with contractors, negotiating with suppliers, managing the team's analysis updates, and presenting progress reports to the partners. The land acquisition went through. Ground broke on the first phase of houses 4 months after approval. During this time, I learned things about myself I hadn't known. I learned I could function on 5 hours of sleep when the work mattered. I learned I had a talent for reading people in negotiations, for knowing when to push and when to wait. I learned I could lead a team effectively, earning their respect through competence rather than authority. I also learned I'd been holding myself back in the relationship with Emma. Not consciously, but I'd been playing smaller, more careful, worried about maintaining balance with her career and her needs. Now, unleashed, I realized how much ambition I'd been suppressing. At the 6-month mark, the highway expansion was announced publicly. Our property values jumped 40% overnight. At 9 months, 2 of the 3 tech companies announced they were building permanent campuses in the area. The third announced a major expansion. Daniel called me into his office on a Friday afternoon, looking impressed and slightly stunned. You called it perfectly. Every single projection you made is tracking ahead of schedule. I told you I wasn't wrong. The partners want to talk about making you a junior partner, youngest in the firm's history. He paused. This kind of success, Rowan, it changes lives. Your life is about to change significantly. It already has, I said, thinking about the night in the hospital parking lot. This is just the proof. That weekend, I celebrated by buying the house I'd been eyeing in the city's historic district. A renovated Victorian with original hardwood floors, a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and a view of the park. It was the house I'd imagined showing Emma someday, back when I'd thought we had a future. Now it was just mine. And that felt right. I walked through the empty rooms, planning furniture placement, imagining the dinner parties I'd host, the quiet Sunday mornings reading in the library. This house represented something Emma never could have, a future built entirely on my terms, with no compromises born of someone else's limitations or betrayals. I ran into Jenna at a coffee shop 11 months after the hospital. She saw me, hesitated, then approached my table. Rowan, hi. Jenna, I owe you an apology. After you sent those screenshots, I did more digging. Emma lied to all of us about what happened. She made you out to be the bad guy for weeks before the truth came out. She sat down without asking. She's not doing well. That's not my concern. Tyler left her after 3 months. Apparently the guilt got to him. He couldn't handle being the reason someone else's relationship imploded. Emma's been a wreck. She lost weight. She barely leaves her apartment except for work. Jenna stopped. You really don't care, do you? Would you? If someone you loved, someone you were about to propose to, spent weeks sneaking around with their ex while you were saving their family, would you care how they felt afterward? Jenna was quiet for a moment. No, I wouldn't. Then you have your answer. I stood up. I hope she figures her life out. I genuinely do. But it has nothing to do with me. She asks about you, constantly. She saw that you bought a house. It's been eating her alive, knowing you moved on. Good. I picked up my coffee. She should feel what it's like to lose something irreplaceable. That's cold, Rowan. No, Jenna. What's cold is betraying someone while they're liquidating their savings to save your father's life. What I'm doing is just living well. If that hurts Emma to witness, she should stop watching. The partnership became official at the 1-year mark. Junior partner, 8% equity stake in the firm, my name on the door. The development project had exceeded every projection. Houses were selling before they were finished, and we'd already broken ground on Phase 2, based on demand. The ceremony was held in the firm's main conference room, Oslapien. Partners were there, along with my team and several key clients. Daniel made a speech about vision and courage and the future of the firm. When he handed me the partnership agreement to sign, I thought briefly about the parallel timeline where this moment would have included Emma celebrating beside me. I was glad she wasn't there. This achievement was mine alone, untainted by obligation or compromise. I dated, casually, a lawyer named Rebecca for 2 months, an architect named Diane for 3. Both were intelligent, attractive, successful. Both situations ended amicably when it became clear neither of us were interested in anything serious. I wasn't ready, and I was honest about that. My life was full in ways it hadn't been before. I traveled, a week in Japan, 2 weeks in Italy, a long weekend in Iceland. I took up woodworking and built a dining table for my house, learning the patience required to work with the grain of the wood rather than against it. I reconnected with college, friends I'd neglected during my relationship with Emma, rebuilding friendships I'd let atrophy. I was happy. Not the wild, desperate happiness of new love, but something steadier and deeper. The satisfaction of a life built on my own terms, answerable to no one, compromised for nothing. 18 months after the hospital, I was at a firm celebration dinner when I saw her. Emma was across the restaurant with an older couple. Her parents, I realized. Her father looked healthy, robust even, his color good. I was genuinely glad to see it. Whatever else had happened, I'd never wished harm on him. Emma looked diminished. Thinner, her face drawn, her eyes hollow in a way that had nothing to do with makeup or lighting. She was wearing an expensive dress that hung slightly loose, as if she'd lost weight since buying it. She saw me at almost the same moment, and I watched the color drain from her face. She said something to her parents and stood up. For a moment, I thought she might approach, but she just stood there, staring at me from across the room. I raised my glass slightly in acknowledgement, a gesture that said, "I see you, I'm indifferent, and I'm fine." Then I turned back to my colleagues and continued my conversation about the new project we were launching in the North District. I felt her watching me for the rest of the meal. I didn't look back. When I left, I saw her father glance at me with something like recognition, then confusion. He said something to Emma, who shook her head rapidly, tears visible even from a distance. I wondered if she'd ever told him the truth, or if he still thought I was just busy with work, too occupied to visit a man whose life I'd helped save. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived at my office. Handwritten, Emma's familiar script on the envelope. I almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won out. Rowan, I know I have no right to contact you. I know you asked me not to, but I'm writing this because I need to say these things, even if you never respond. Seeing you at dinner broke something in me that I'd been barely holding together. You looked happy, successful, whole. Everything I'm not anymore. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was a coward. When my dad got sick, I panicked about losing him, about mortality, about the weight of adult life and serious relationships. Tyler represented something easy and familiar, no expectations, no future, no pressure. With you, everything was real. Our relationship meant something, had stakes, could lead to marriage and children and the rest of our lives. That terrified me, and instead of talking to you about it, I sabotaged us. Tyler and I lasted 3 months after you left. He couldn't live with the guilt of what we'd done, and honestly, neither could I. Being with him felt like wearing someone else's clothes. Wrong, uncomfortable, a costume I couldn't maintain. I tried to move on. I went on dates. I threw myself into work. I went to therapy. Nothing helped. Everything reminds me of you, of us, of what I threw away. My father is healthy now. The surgery you paid for gave him another chance at life. He asks about you sometimes. He really liked you, respected you. I still haven't told him the truth about why you're gone. I can't bear to see the disappointment in his eyes when he learns what I did. I'm not writing to ask for another chance. I know that's impossible. I'm writing to tell you that you were right about everything. I was still hung up on Tyler. I did betray you. I chose wrong at every turn, and I've paid for it every single day since you walked away. I hope you find someone worthy of the man you are. I hope you build the life you deserve, and I hope someday I can forgive myself for losing you. I'm sorry. For everything. Emma. I read the letter twice, then filed it away in my desk drawer. I didn't respond. What was there to say? She was sorry. She regretted it. She'd learned her lesson. None of that changed what she'd done, or brought back the future we'd lost. More importantly, none of it mattered to the life I was building now. Her apology was about her need for absolution, not about my healing. I'd already healed. I'd moved forward. Her regret was her burden to carry, not mine to relieve. At the 2-year mark, I met someone. Her name was Olivia. She was a landscape architect who'd been hired to design the green spaces for our latest development project. She was brilliant, funny, direct, in a way that reminded me why I'd been able to walk away from Emma so cleanly. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. Our first meeting was professional, a presentation of her designs to the development team. She'd proposed a network of walking trails connecting pocket parks throughout the development, with native plantings that would require minimal water and create wildlife corridors. It was elegant, sustainable, and exactly the kind of thinking that would set our project apart. "This is excellent work," I told her after the presentation. "You understand that we're not just building houses, we're building a community." "That's the only way to do this right," she said. "Cookie-cutter subdivisions are environmental disasters and social dead zones. If you're going to develop land, you have a responsibility to improve it." I was impressed, and I realized, attracted. I asked her to dinner to discuss the project further. Halfway through the meal, we both acknowledged we were no longer talking about landscape design. "I should be clear," Olivia said. "I don't date clients during active projects. Conflict of interest. And I've worked too hard to build my reputation to compromise it." "That's fair. So we wait until the project is complete?" "That's in 8 months." "I can wait 8 months," I said. Assuming you're interested in waiting with me. She smiled. I think I am. We became friends first, coffee meetings to discuss the project, that stretched into conversations about everything else. Emails about plant species that devolved into debates about movies and books. A careful, deliberate building of connection that felt nothing like the whirlwind romance with Emma. This was better. Steadier. Built on mutual respect and honest communication rather than chemistry and assumption. When the project completed and the professional barrier dissolved, our first official date felt like coming home. I need you to know something up front, Olivia told me on our third date. I'm not interested in complicated. I did complicated. It ended badly. Now I want someone who shows up, tells the truth, and doesn't make me question where I stand. I can do that, I said. Good. Because you seem great, Rowan, but I need you to know. I'm not interested in being someone's rebound or their emotional rehabilitation project. If you're still hung up on someone else, tell me now. I'm not, I said, and realized it was true. There was someone about 2 years ago. She made choices that ended things definitively. I'm not hung up on her. I'm just careful now about who I invest in. That's fair? What happened? I gave her the abbreviated version. Relationship, family emergency, betrayal, clean break. Olivia nodded slowly. And you haven't looked back? Not once. Good, she sounds like an idiot. I laughed, surprised. That's one way to put it. She had someone willing to drop 47 grand for her family and she cheated on him? Yeah, that's idiotic. Olivia met my eyes. Her loss is my gain, I guess. It was the beginning of something real. Emma found out about Olivia 6 months into our relationship. I didn't advertise my personal life on social media, but Olivia did, and eventually someone who knew Emma saw her posts. The messages started again. Different numbers, new social media accounts I hadn't blocked yet, all saying variations of the same thing. I can't believe you moved on, I thought. What we had meant something. How can you be happy with someone else? I blocked each one without responding and kept living my life. One message got through on a professional platform I rarely checked. You replaced me so easily. Like I never mattered. Like 18 months meant nothing. How can you be so heartless? I stared at that message for a long time, then typed a single response. I didn't replace you. I moved forward after you betrayed me. Those are different things. You mattered once. Then you chose to matter less. Stop contacting me. I blocked her there too. The firm threw a party for the completion of the development project's final phase. Every projection had been met or exceeded. The return on investment was 3 times what we'd conservatively estimated. Property values in the area had increased 130% since we'd broken ground. The firm's reputation had been enhanced significantly. We were now fielding inquiries from municipalities and developers across the state. Daniel announced that I was being promoted to senior partner, with a corresponding increase in equity and responsibility. To Rowan, he said, raising his glass. Who saw the future when the rest of us were stuck in the present? Olivia squeezed my hand under the table. Proud of you, she whispered. That night, in my perfectly renovated Victorian house, with a woman who showed up honestly and consistently, I realized I hadn't thought about Emma in months. She'd become a story I sometimes told about poor judgment and lessons learned. She wasn't a wound anymore, just a scar, faded and largely forgotten. The final encounter happened at 2 years and 9 months. I was having lunch with a client at a restaurant downtown when Emma walked in. She was with a man I didn't recognize. Tall, blonde, expensive suit. They were shown to a table near mine. She saw me immediately. I watched her entire body language change. Her shoulders slumped, her smile faded, her attention drifted from her companion. The man noticed, followed her gaze, and frowned. I ignored them both and continued my lunch meeting. 20 minutes later, Emma appeared at my table. Her companion was paying the check behind her, looking uncomfortable. "Rowan, can we talk? Please? Just 5 minutes." My client looked between us, confused. I stood up smoothly. "Excuse me for just a moment." I walked Emma toward the restaurant's entrance, out of earshot but not out of sight. "What do you want, Emma?" "I needed to see you face to face. I needed to tell you—" She stopped, tears forming. "I miss you, every day. I see you thriving and successful and happy, and I can't move on because I know I had that and I threw it away." "So you wanted to tell me you're miserable? That's why you interrupted my business lunch?" "I wanted to tell you that I understand now. What we had, what I lost. I've tried to find it again with other people and it's not there. It was you, Rowan. It was always you." "Emma, listen carefully." I kept my voice level, professional. "What we had ended the moment you chose Tyler. Every day after that has been you living with the consequences of your choice. That's not my responsibility. That's not something I can or want to fix. If I could go back, you can't. None of us can. And even if you could, I wouldn't want you to, because that betrayal taught me exactly what I need in a partner. Someone honest, someone loyal, someone who doesn't run to their ex when things get difficult." I glanced back at my table. I found that person. I'm happy. I'm successful. I have everything I want in my life. And I'm not part of that. "No, you're not." She looked broken, shattered in a way that would have devastated me 2 years ago. Now I just felt tired. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said quietly. "I hope you learn from this and do better with the next person. But Emma, you need to let me go. This," I gestured between us, "is done. It's been done. Stop torturing yourself by tracking my life and comparing it to yours." "How do I do that? How do I just stop loving you?" "The same way I did. One day, one choice at a time. By recognizing that the person you love doesn't exist anymore and hasn't for a long time." I stepped back. "Goodbye, Emma. I mean that. Goodbye. Don't contact me again." I returned to my table. My client raised an eyebrow questioningly. "Sorry about that. Old business, finally resolved." We continued our meeting. When I looked toward the entrance later, Emma and her companion were gone. That evening, I told Olivia about the encounter. "How did it feel?" she asked. "Seeing her again?" "Like running into someone I used to know in college. Familiar, but distant. The person I was who loved her doesn't exist anymore." "Good," Olivia said. "Because I really like the person you are now." 3 years to the day after I walked out of that hospital, I proposed to Olivia. We were hiking in the mountains. She'd grown up near, the autumn leaves the same colors they'd been that day in the hospital parking lot. But this time, the beauty of the season felt like a beginning instead of an ending. "I know we've talked about this," I said, pulling out the ring I'd bought, a simple platinum band with a single perfect diamond. Nothing like the elaborate setting I'd chosen for Emma. "But I want to make it official. Will you marry me?" Olivia looked at the ring, then at me, her eyes bright. "You're sure? No ghosts hanging around?" "No ghosts," I promised. "Just a future I want to build with you." "Then yes. Obviously yes." We were married 6 months later in a small ceremony at my house, our house now, surrounded by people we loved who had proven their loyalty and presence in our lives. Daniel was there, my team from work, Olivia's family, the friends I'd reconnected with over the past 3 years. It was perfect in its simplicity, in its honesty, in its complete absence of drama or complication. I thought about Emma briefly during the ceremony. Wondered if she'd heard somehow. Wondered if it hurt. Then Olivia smiled at me as we exchanged vows, and Emma became what she'd always been since I walked away. Irrelevant to the life I was actually living. 5 years after the hospital, I received one final message. It came through LinkedIn, of all places, a platform I rarely checked. Emma's profile picture showed an older, wearier version of the woman I'd known. I saw the announcement about your firm's expansion into 3 new markets. Congratulations. You've built an incredible career. I'm getting married in the fall. His name is David. He's kind and patient, and understands that I'm still healing from my own mistakes. I'm trying to build something real with him, the way I should have with you. I'm writing because my therapist suggested closure might help both of us. So here it is. I was wrong. About everything. I chose poorly, I lied, I betrayed someone who deserved better. I've spent 5 years living with that regret, and I'm finally learning that regret can't change the past. It can only inform the future. I hope you're happy, Rowan. I mean that sincerely. You deserved happiness then, and you deserve it now. Thank you for walking away. If you hadn't, I might never have been forced to confront who I was and who I needed to become. I wish you well, Emma. I read the message once, then archived it without responding. Olivia found me in my study that evening, staring out at the park view. You okay? Perfect, I said, and meant it. Just tying up the last loose end of an old chapter. Need to talk about it? No, I said, pulling her into my arms. That chapter's closed. I'm right where I want to be. And I was. The betrayal that had shattered one future had ultimately led me to a better one. Not through revenge or bitterness, but through the simple act of walking away and refusing to settle for anything less than I deserved. Emma had chosen her ex over me, had valued familiarity over loyalty, had betrayed me when I was being the best partner I could be. And I had chosen myself, my standards, and my future. In the end, the best revenge wasn't making her suffer. It was building a life so fulfilling that her regret became nothing more than background noise to my happiness. I won by thriving. She lost by staying stuck in the past, forever mourning what she'd destroyed. 5 years after I'd paid $47,000 for her father's surgery and walked away from her betrayal, I could honestly say I'd never made a better investment in my future than the moment I chose my own worth over her apologies. That decision had cost me a relationship. It had gained me everything else.